In the previous video, we discussed how to use JIRA for development projects. Let us now take a look at an overview of Agile concepts. In this video, we are going to take a look at what is Agile, Scrum and Kanban methodologies. We'll take a look at some key Agile concepts and we'll discuss different roles in Agile. What is Agile? Well, Agile is a set of values and principles. It is a time-boxed iterative approach to develop software incrementally instead of delivering it all in one go. There are 12 principles of Agile that defines the concept behind various Agile methodologies, and you can go through this link to understand more about those 12 principles. And the whole idea behind Agile is to have the scope for changes during later stages in the development, and continuous improvement along with continuous delivery is also one of the key benefits of using Agile. Scrum and Kanban methodologies. Scrum is a process framework for structuring your project. In Scrum, the work is first planned and it is executed in various iterations, also known as sprints, and the commitment that you do in your sprint is the change agent in Scrum methodology. So as part of your sprint delivery, you're supposed to work towards the delivery of all the work that you agreed in the planning phase. And the whole idea here is to deliver small usable chunks, which is something that your stakeholders can actually use instead of half-cooked product. Try to deliver a working prototype and also make sure that you deliver fast. And communication between the team is also key when you work on Scrum-based project. On the other hand, Kanban focuses on incremental improvements of your project. The work in progress limit is the change agent. So in a Kanban, the focus is more on the visualization of the work that your team is doing. So let us say in case you are working on a support-based project, you don't really need to plan the work that your team is doing. You are instead working on making sure that at any given point, you should not have more than 10 items in your backlog or maybe in a specific status in the project. Key Agile concepts. When we talk about Scrum, we have different Scrum artifacts known as the product backlog, sprint backlog, and the burn down chart in your project. Product backlog is basically the list of all the activities or tasks that you need to do in your project. Sprint backlog is the list of activities or tasks that are picked from the product backlog and that you agreed to deliver as part of a specific sprint. And finally, the burn down chart defines the progress, or you can use it to track the work that you're doing, whether you will be able to achieve your work on time or not, or whether you will be able to deliver the work that you agreed in your sprint can actually be tracked using burn down chart. Type of task. We have different types of activities that can be tracked in Scrum. You have the epic, which is your high level requirement. Then you have the stories, which are the actual task that you need to perform. And usually these stories are linked or part of a specific epic. And finally, you have various subtasks, which are nothing but a breakup of your different stories. Then you have prioritization, also known as the rank. So when you work on a product backlog, you first groom your product backlog, where you need to first prioritize and define what activities need to be done first in the sprint. And when you are actually defining the sprint, the exact order of different activities that need to be performed in the sprint is something that is known as the rank of your stories. And before you start the work of your specific sprint, you need to estimate each and every stories that you have in the sprint backlog. For example, if you are supposed to deliver 10 different stories in your sprint, you need to define their estimation that could be based on story points, or it can be based on the complexity of the work. So story point is again very important concept in Agile. And there are different reports like burn down chart and velocity chart that will be based on the story points or the estimation that you do before starting the sprint. And the actual sprint is something which is your iteration. And for each and every sprint, you need to have the duration, which defines when the sprint will be started and when the sprint will be ended. Usually, a 2-week period is a good sprint duration, but it is totally up to you if you want to have maybe a 1-week sprint or maybe a 3-week sprint. So you can have your own duration, but it should not be too long. Don't create a sprint which will last for more than a month. And then you have some visualization of the progress. You have the Agile board where you can have different columns like all the items that are currently in to-do list. Then you have a separate column for all the items that are currently in progress, and then all the items that are currently resolved. So you can have this board for each and every sprint in your project. And finally, you also have something called as a swim lane, which is nothing but a way to group your different stories on the board on a horizontal line. And you have some various reports in your Agile based projects. The most important report which is relevant for Scrum is called as burn down and velocity chart. So burn down basically give you the ability to track the work that you're doing, and it will tell you that whether you are following the track or not. So in case you're not really delivering the work on time, that burn down chart can actually give you this indication. So your project manager or your Scrum master will be able to trigger you, and it will enable them to raise an alarm. And finally, you have velocity chart that will define the work or amount of work that you have been able to deliver in the previous sprints. Different roles in Agile. We have a role called Scrum Product Owner, which is nothing but your stakeholder or the business analyst. And these people actually define the product backlog. Then you have Scrum Master, which is your project manager, or it can be your project lead. And usually these people will manage the sprints, and they have to make sure that they sit with the product owner for backlog grooming. And when you start a sprint, before starting a sprint, you need to plan the activities that you need to do as part of the sprint, and you also need to estimate your sprint stories. So these people will actually sit with the team and they will help you with the sprint planning and estimation. And finally, you have Scrum team, which is nothing but your developers or testers. In the next video, we will discuss how we can configure a Scrum board.